Well, hello, everybody. Hello again. It's another beautiful Wednesday out here. Well, at least it's supposed to be rather beautiful. Starting to get a little cold over here, cold and rainy, but it's fall. What do you expect? I'm so excited to have you all here. So thank you for being here. Hi, KJ. If you are here, just give me a shout out, give me a wave. Let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're from. Love seeing all you guys all the time, and it really kind of warms my heart just to see the world join together in this wonderful broadcast. So it's really exciting. I love seeing you guys. And one of the things I wanted to kind of quickly give you a shout out to is those people who've been watching are really starting to express their interest in trying to see, can they expand their own spirituality? Can they expand, their own ability to understand not only their spiritual selves, but also the spirit around them? And that's really the whole purpose of this entire show, is to see how can we connect? How can we find that we can connect with the spirit within, expand our own spirit and spirituality, but also connect with all the spirit that is constantly around us, sharing our space and with us all the time. Oh, hi, Mana from Delaware. Great seeing you. Hey, Claire from Scotland. Love having you here. It's always great seeing everybody from all over the country. We've got KJ from North Carolina as well. That's just great. Love seeing you here. So, if you don't know me, one of the things I want to do is kind of give you a quick background about me. My name is Chris Lippincott. I'm an international spiritual medium, best-selling author, and a teacher. And I love describing and exploring what spirit is. How do we contact spirit? How are we even able to know that they're here? So many times people ask, how do I discern between my own imagination and spirit? How do I know spirit's really here? How do I contact with them? How do I contact my guides? How? So, what I love to do is explain the how, explain the whys, explain that this is not something that is up there and out of reach. It's actually in here. It's in us. It's in our heart. It's in our spirit, because that's really where the connection begins. As Gordon Higginson so famously said so long ago, before you can connect with the spirit without, you must first connect with the spirit within. And once you do that and you allow the spirit to rise, that's when you really start to get that connection. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing. As you all may know, I came from a very materialist and very agnostic background. And after I had my awakening, it was such a profound change, seismic shift, that I had to understand what I was undergoing, and I began to understand that as a result of sort of a physical explanation, a metaphysical, physical, materialistic explanation, because my rational mind was saying, what's going on? I got to understand this. Eventually I did. And that's why I'm like trying to explain it in ways that become so understandable and allow people to access it in a way that, hey, you all can do this. So that's really my background, and I love talking about this. And as you may have seen, that today's discussion is all about how you can prevent yourself from judging yourself, because don't we all judge ourselves too harshly all the time? That's really what this is about. How to stop judging yourself. And really, underneath that, how do you explore your own enlightenment? How do you explain your own spirituality? And it really sort of, they're all intertwined. So let's just jump right in. When we all think of ourselves, we all seem to be our own worst critics, right? I know I am. And I know that's true with the rest of the world, because our ego mind is constantly going, saying, I should be doing that. I should be doing the other thing. I should be doing, all these different things. And it turns out that, in fact, the rest of the world is not as critical as we are. In fact, the rest of the world seems to have a little bit of a softer viewpoint. We may actually think of ourselves as always being wrong. There are some people who always think of themselves in the brightest light, which is great, but the vast majority of people are very harshly criticizing themselves. And one of the ways that you can start to get over that is to learn about your spirit. Learn how, in fact, you truly are perfect. We are all brought here in perfection, in perfect states, in designs that are as intended. In fact, here's a great story from my spiritual awakening. I can remember very vividly when I was in this period, this out of body experience I was having. I can very vividly remember spirit or my guides or somebody telling me that I was perfect. And believe me, I was like, oh, there ain't no way I can be perfect. You don't know what I've done in my life. I have done so many bad things. That's just not physically possible. There's no way. But it kept on coming, kept on coming. That they were saying I was perfect. I was also fully accepted. So you start to hear this thing over and over again, and there's this constant theme about how we are accepted, how we are perfectly loved, how we are truly perfect. Yet, the physical us, the ego us, looks at ourselves and we're like, oh my God, I'm horrible, or God, I look horrible in the mirror today, or clothes aren't right, or God, I should have done that, I should have known this, I should have done the other thing. And we just we harsh on ourselves, right? And it gets to be this point where we're just really beating ourselves up all the time. Yet in truth, we are perfect. We are exactly where we're supposed to be, as we're supposed to be, in a perfect design. We're designed perfectly. Because think of it this way: we, again, are energy. We are also the same energy as the Creator created us. We're all energy. Everything's energy. Everything everywhere is energy. So that, in fact, all we're doing is understanding what the energy is. And we're thinking about, okay, well, isn't my hand here, isn't that the real thing? Isn't this chair that I'm sitting on the real thing? No, because that is just the perception of what you're experiencing when you touch the chair, when you see your hand. That's a perception. And in fact, one of the biggest things to know is your perception is, in fact, highly skewed. Your reality is very different than what is really going on. So I wanted to bring up some key points here. I'm going to bring up a slide that kind of goes through my general ideas. So I'm going to kind of put it on, take it off, so you can just kind of see some of the ideas. I'll kind of go back and forth here. The first idea that you can see is, as I was talking about before, everything around us is just an illusion. And everything around us is an illusion primarily because we're energy, right? Think of us as a microscopic examination. The closer you go in, the closer you start to see that 99.99999% of everything in existence is just empty space. And that empty space is just energy. There is really no matter. There's really no material stuff there. And what you're actually feeling is the electron, the repulsion. They're repelling each other. It's like two magnets that are coming together, and you start to feel the magnets. They'll never want to come together, right? When you bring the polarity in the wrong direction, you try to press two magnets together, they will never ever come together. Of course, if you bring the poles the right way, they'll immediately attract each other. But you put it in the wrong way, and you'll just try to force them, and they'll never ever touch. That's the exact same thing. It's called electron repulsion. They're repelling each other, going the opposite directions. So what you feel when you press something, that's electron repulsion. So that's a concept. So going back to the concept of energy, as a result of this, what's happening is that the thoughts we're seeing actually create everything. And thought is merely a focused energy. A thought is energy. Brain waves, for example, energy. So thought creates things. Thought becomes things. So all that we are is a result of what we have thought. Famous expression from Buddha, right? All that we are is a result of what we have thought. So as you think, That is what you create. So as a result of that, you're creating your world. You're creating your experience. What's happening is that everything you're seeing around you, what you're experiencing around you, that's a result of what you have thought. And so, as you're thinking all these different things, over time, your experience becomes a result of what you put out based on your thoughts. It could have started many years ago. You could have had these negative thoughts. You could have had these harsh thoughts. You could have had these thoughts that were counterproductive. And so, as a result, you're starting to create negative things either in your life or even people in your life that are merely reflections of your thought energy. Your thought energy is creating as you move along. So be very careful of what you think. Always try to be thinking in a creative, positive mode. If you think in a negative mode, you're going to receive negative things over time. Good thing is there's a delay. And the other good thing is that positive thoughts always outweigh negative thoughts. So think about positive things and also realize that there's going to be a delay. Remember that the phrase is structured in that way. All that we have thought, past tense, is a result, all that we are now in the present tense is a result of what we have thought in the past tense. Almost got that wrong. But you can see how it works. And so, as I was saying, everything that we're thinking is creating the world around us, creating all of our experiences, creating all the people we see, creating what we interact with every day, all day long. So if we're thinking positively and kindly, we're forgiving other people, we're being nice and loving and towards others, ultimately we're doing the same thing to ourselves. Because again, what we're experiencing around us, all those people around us, they are literally extensions of us. So think of it being an extension of us. Think you encounter somebody on the sidewalk, right? You don't really think it's part of you. You don't really think it's something that is anything to do with you. But in fact, that person that you're encountering is actually somebody that you helped to create into your reality. You brought them into your reality. They wouldn't be there if your thought energy hadn't brought them to that point. So that situation that you're dealing with, that situation that you're actually encountering, maybe that person's a really great person. And you're like, oh, this is fantastic. That's a result of your positive thought. Or maybe you're encountering a person that's really mean and nasty. Well, that's a result of a negative thought. And it's, again, the thought energy is attracting and pulling and moving and creating all these different situations. We don't even realize what we're doing. It's something that is a mind-blowing perception because we're just walking along every day, right? We're kind of going along, all right, this is what I'm used to. This is the way my existence is. It's my perception. My perception is right here. I can see everything. I can touch everything. This is the world I know. When you begin to think that the, the world that you know is far greater, the existence is far bigger than you could possibly imagine, and the power that your mind has, it's astounding, right? So also, if you nothing else, try to begin practicing acceptance, non-judgment, and forgiveness. Try to do that towards others, because if you're doing it to other people, then you're ultimately doing it to yourself. Because remember, other people are extensions of you. So if you begin to start to send positive thoughts or loving thoughts or kind thoughts or non-judgment thoughts to other people, you're ultimately receiving those thoughts. It's kind of like the boomerang effect, right? You think one thing, whatever it is that you're thinking, you're receiving it back. You think out positive thoughts, you receive positive thoughts in return. Think of it, for example, when you're walking on the sidewalk and you are coming up to some stranger and you just turn to them and you smile. What do? They smile back at you most of the time. And if they see you, maybe they're so self-absorbed, they're like staring down at the sidewalk, looking at their feet. But if you smile at them and you kind of give them in that acknowledgement, that happy, upbeat energy, they often respond in kind. And we do that a lot too. So try to do that. Try to, smile to somebody. See how many, I've got a challenge for you. See how many people you can try to make smile each day. Kind of take a notebook, right? Say, okay, this week I'm going to try to make one person smile every day. Doesn't have to be much, right? But think of the effect that you would have on the world. Each day, you're making one person smile. You're making one person's life just a little bit better, right? It's not taking a whole lot. It's not taking much of your energy. I mean, how much energy does it take to smile, right? Nothing. I mean, you could be sitting there and going, oh, I really don't feel like it, but all of a sudden you'll go, eep, and that's that. And it's that much microscopic energy. Nobody's asking you to like move mountains. No one is asking you to, become, some saint and some, pious person. We're just saying, hey, smile at somebody, make the world just a little happier, a little lighter, a little bit more joyous, right? Encourage that for people. And when you start to do that, you start to feel better. You start to feel the joy. You start to feel happier and more loving and more kind and more accepting. You can't help it, right? As you start to give out, you start to receive it back. And as you start doing this, this is something where you begin to be more accepting of yourself. You start to be less judging of yourself. You start to be more forgiving of yourself. You start to be more loving towards yourself. And isn't that a great place to be? Isn't that what we all want of ourselves? So it's wonderful to think of all these practices as you're giving it to other people, and also to yourself as well. So another way you can think about it is actually reversing it. So if you're having trouble conceiving that direction, think about it in terms of loving yourself first, accepting yourself first. It may be impossible. I get that. It may be really difficult. I can't love myself. I hate myself. I'm in a place right now where everything's cold and dank and dark, and I don't really like what's going on. Okay, I get it. But just try to say, hey, I'm going to smile at myself. Look at yourself in the mirror, literally, and just smile at yourself for 5 seconds. I promise you, you're going to feel different. You may feel like, oh, I'm faking it. This isn't right. I can't do this. But I promise you, if you start smiling at yourself and saying, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, after you get over the initial awkwardness of saying that, you're going to start feeling a little bit better. I mean, I now do this all the time. I literally say, I love myself every single morning in the mirror 100 times. The beginning, I feel like I'm faking it. It's awkward. I'm like, oh God, I can't do this, right? But at the end, I'm like jumping up and down. I'm ready to do like a marathon. I'm like, yes, I can conquer the world. Why? Because I'm accepting myself. I'm loving myself and being kind towards myself. In the beginning, it feels like hell. I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Do I have to do this again? I'm bored of that. But I promise you, at the end, you feel on top of the mountain, right? So do that. So what you can do is you can start to feel like you love yourself, you are accepting of yourself, you're forgiving of yourself. And as you do that, you can then go out into the world and start sharing that feeling of acceptance and love and forgiveness and kindness to everybody else. There's a saying that before one can know others, one must know oneself first. And that's the whole concept behind that. You got to know yourself first. You got to treat yourself right first. And if you do that, then everything works perfectly. Then you can start to give others what it is that you have within you. It's like you go on an airline, right? The airplane's about to take off, and the flight attendants are giving their drone, they're droning on about what you got to do. You got to fasten your seatbelts and all that stuff, right? But there's also that one part where they say, in case of cabin pressure drops and the air mask, whatever it's called, the oxygen mask comes down, you've got to put it on your face first. Only once you put it on your face can you then give it to somebody else. Why do they say that? Because you can't give somebody else oxygen if you don't have oxygen yourself. So you got to take in the oxygen, give somebody else the oxygen. And you can't give somebody else love unless you have love first. And that's true with anybody. Why is it, for example, that you may be experiencing somebody who doesn't give you any love? They don't have any love inside to give. They just don't have it. It's not there. It's like saying, how can you give something that you don't have? So you've got to have it within you first. So have the love, have the acceptance, have the forgiveness of self first. Once you have that first within, you can then share it with everybody else. So that's one way you can also do it, right? And that's going to help you to, in turn, love other people again, because they are extensions of you. Remember, go right back to the beginning, the concept that we're all energy. Everybody's essentially an extension of you, or something that you have created, or a situation that you have created based on your energy. And you, therefore, are placing the situation, the interaction, the experience as something that you created. So as you're loving yourself, you're loving other people. And as you're loving other people, you're loving yourself because they are an extension of you. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I hope this was something that was really useful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please type them in the chat box, right? I'd love to hear what your overall feelings are, what's going on with you today. If any of this was confusing, let me know. I want to hear it. If any of this makes sense, I'd love to hear that too. Ask me any questions. I'm here to try to answer your questions, and this is why I love doing this. What I often find when people ask me questions about this is they're like, well, how is it possible? How can we be an extent? How can other people can be an extension of me? And it's just what I was trying to explain. It's that other people are essentially an extension of us because we've created the situation. We've brought them into our world. And as a result, that we create everything. In fact, what happens often is that spirit comes through either in automatic writings or in trance sessions or in mediumistic readings, and they often express the fact that the mind, the spirit can create so much of anything that it wants. The mind and thoughts, the thought power is so huge that we humans here in the physical, the quote unquote physical, right? We humans down here don't understand the power of our own thought. And you can begin to think of any number of experiences where people have overcome incredible odds. I can immediately think of one famous person who was completely paralyzed, vertebrae was crushed, trachea was crushed, everything was crushed, couldn't move a muscle in his body. And they said he was going to be basically a vegetable for his entire life. He couldn't move a thing, right? And he was absolutely determined to walk out of that hospital before Christmas. And sure enough, he has kept on thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and imagining and creating and allowing his mind to begin to think these things. And slowly, bit by bit, they'd pull out like the feeding tube because all of a sudden he could swallow. All of a sudden they pulled out the oxygen tube because he could breathe. And over time he started being able to move his muscles in his arms, where before he was completely paralyzed. And he started working up his muscles, working up his flexibility, and sure enough, by Christmas, he literally walked out of that hospital. I think it was in Texas. He walked out of a hospital before Christmas just because he thought himself back to fullness, thought himself back to complete fullness. It's an amazing story. And there's so many stories like that. People will heal themselves with their own thought. So thought power is massive. So think about that as we sit here talking about how we create our own experience and how we create our own world. And it goes right back to the whole title of today's show. How to stop judging yourself. You don't need to judge yourself because that is the basis of enlightenment. That's the basis of your spirituality. If you begin to understand what you're made of and what you truly have the power to do and create, then there's no reason that you're going to be judging yourself anymore. There's not going to be any reason why you're going to be judging others anymore. I know I frequently still do this. I'll be at a restaurant and there's that baby crying, and I'm thinking, gosh, doesn't that baby belong in bed? Isn't it kind of getting late here? Come on, get that baby out of here. Get the baby out of here. When in fact, I should be thinking, wow, those parents, they really, they must have a tough time. Maybe they couldn't find a babysitter. Maybe the babysitter canceled on them last minute and they had no options. They already had the reservation, right? So that's really one thing. So Claire's mentioning something here. Forgiveness and non-judgment seems to free us and allow us to discover ourselves a little more. Absolutely. It's very freeing because we've all grown up with the concept that that we don't have any power. We've all grown up with the concept that we are limited just by our physicality, or we're limited by our circumstance, when in reality, we are unlimited. We are infinite beings with infinite power to do whatever it is that our thoughts come up with. Of course, that should be used for good. One would hope that we're using this for good. And that's the whole concept, that we're using this for acceptance, love, forgiveness. We bring that forward and we create this incredible reverberation that what we put out is what we get back. So I hope that helps everybody. So with that, I'm going to stop my my ranting and raving. If you have additional questions, please let me know. I would definitely love to hear from you. Let me know if you've got additional questions. This is it's wonderful to hear from you. And if you have no more questions, what I will do is we'll wrap it up for the evening. And I thank you so much for being here, and I thank you so much for joining me and trying to understand something that is actually rather difficult to wrap your arms around. I get it. It's quite a fundamentally difficult and different concept than we're all used to. But when you start to think about it, and you start to analyze it, and you start to think, does this make any sense? And you start to follow the dots, there is definitely a theme here, and we start to understand that. So I am thankful for you, and I'm thankful for all of you for being here, and I thank you for being here, and I'm sending you lots of love and light. And I will sign off for tonight, and I will see you next time. So until then, this is Chris, and wishing you lots of love and light. Until then, bye-bye.